Chicago Cubs are already eyeing their next major offseason move before the 2026 season has even come to an end. The front office has already shown urgency at the trade deadline, adding Gausman and Holmes along with Braxton Garrett and Ryan Zefferjon to strengthen the team's pitching staff. According to Kerry Miller of Bleacher Report, the Northside franchise is expected to sign pitcher Casey Mai, the former Detroit Tigers star who was traded at this year's deadline, to a projected 5-year, $90 million contract. The prediction comes at a delicate time for Chicago. Despite the recent additions to the rotation, including Kevin Gausman and Clay Holmes, many of the Cubs' current starters are set to become free agents at the end of the season. Mize, who has posted a 3.40 ERA this season, emerges as a more financially realistic alternative to Tarik Skubal, the other major name to come out of Detroit, whose projected massive contract would make a deal difficult for Chicago. Miller believes the contract could come in at less than $20 million per year, a competitive price for a right-handed starting pitcher with the potential to become an important part of the rotation beginning in 2027. When I saw Kerry Miller's report, my first reaction was complete agreement with the logic behind the prediction. From a strategic standpoint, it makes perfect sense. The Cubs cannot enter the 2026-27 offseason relying solely on uncertain free agent reunions with players like Gausman, Imanaga, Boyd, and Peterson. The front office needs a solid plan B, and Mize represents exactly that, a young right-handed pitcher with a recent track record of efficiency, potentially available at a price below the market rate for the position. What stands out to me most about this potential move is the timing. Mize would leave a competitive environment in Detroit, where he competed for a spot in a highly regarded rotation, and arrive in Chicago as a pitcher capable of taking on an immediate leadership role, or a front office that has historically prioritized medium-term contracts with controlled financial risk. A 5-year, $90 million deal fits perfectly with the type of roster management we have seen from the Cubs in previous free agent periods. Now, Northside Nation, I need you to stop for a second before we move on to the next part of this analysis. If you want to keep getting this kind of strategic breakdown straight from the Cubs front office perspective before other channels get to it, now is the time to subscribe to Cubs Wrigley Report. Turn on notifications because the next few weeks are going to bring plenty of buzz around the free agent market, and you won't want to miss a single update. And stay with me, because next I'm going to show you exactly how a potential Casey Mai signing would change the entire chessboard, both for the starting rotation and for the overall balance of the Cubs roster heading into a direct battle with the Milwaukee Brewers for the National League Central. Looking strictly at the technical side, adding Casey Mai would solve a structural problem the Cubs are going to face beginning in 2027. Right now, the only starters under contractual control who can be considered legitimate and reliable rotation options are Edward Cabrera, Ben Brown, Colin Rea, Justin Steele, Javier Assad, and Cade Horton. That is a group with plenty of potential, but it is still surrounded by questions about health and consistency, especially after the injury crisis that affected Horton, Steele, Boyd, Taillon, and Cabrera throughout the season. Adding an experienced right-handed arm like Mize would give the front office the flexibility it needs to manage innings throughout the year without relying exclusively on young pitchers who are still developing, and without forcing Cabrera or Horton to take on workloads beyond the recommended limits during the first half of the season. Indirectly, a more stable rotation would also reduce the strain on the bullpen, something that directly affects Chicago's ability to sustain winning stretches like the recent 11-2 blowout over the Detroit Tigers. And on a larger scale, every additional reliable starter brings the Cubs one step closer to competing on equal footing with the Milwaukee Brewers for the National League Central lead, which is still a significant distance away in the standings. And here's my verdict without beating around the bush. If Kerry Miller's prediction comes true, the Cubs would be making one of the smartest moves of the upcoming offseason. 5 years and $90 million for a right-handed starter with a 3.40 ERA and a history of playing a major role in a competitive rotation is the kind of contract that could age well. He isn't the flashiest name on the market. He isn't Tarik Skubal, but he is exactly the type of calculated acquisition a strategic front office needs to make when it knows it cannot build an entire rotation around free agents who may not even want to return. If the Cubs actually execute this move, 2027 could be the year Chicago finally turns the tables on Milwaukee in the National League Central. Consider this your warning, Northside Nation. Keep an eye on this name, because Casey Mai could be the decisive piece that unlocks the next stage of the Cubs' competitive window.